Ready, willing, and able. Hello, hello.
All right, let's do it. Back again with another 15 projects today. These are all companies that are in the top 50 on Pioneer. For each of them, we're going to kind of review them, give them maybe some general, or in most cases, folks have actually asked a specific question, so we'll try our best to be as helpful as we can. Andrew, you want to start?
Let's go. All right, so we're starting with HYDE, HYDE. And the question they ask is, how can we acquire economically strong users? Economically strong users. That's an interesting way of putting it. I'm guessing what you mean by economically strong are people who have money to spend on your products. I'm not exactly sure what that means. But that's the interpretation I'm going to go with for now. So let's see what you guys are working on. Turn your data into money in 5 minutes. Okay, let's play this quick video. Oh, is my audio sharing, by the way?
Yeah. Oh, yeah, it is.
All right.
Personal data is the most valuable asset of the planet. At the same time, you cannot turn your personal data into crypto tokens. HYDE is a protocol for data monetization. By linking accounts like Netflix, Twitter, or Spotify, you build a significant stream of passive income. To secure your data, HYDE uses a state-of-the-art privacy framework. In that way, it is possible to break existing data silos and for you to regain data autonomy. With HYDE, for the first time.
Okay, got it.
You can stake your personal data to gain continuous yields. HYDE monetizes by providing next-gen market analytics based on fully anonymized data.
Okay, so if I understand this correctly, you share your connections with software that you use, whatever blockchain protocol you're using anonymizes said data and then monetizes it by selling it as like market research to companies that are paying for it. So that's my understanding of what you're working on here. Okay. Yeah, okay, got it. Fully anonymized data. So I'll try to answer your question first, which is acquiring economically strong users. I guess is the question here really, do you want users that have money or do you want users that are looking to monetize their personal information? It sounds like what you're really targeting is the latter of people that are interested in this sort of thing. Where I imagine there are probably a bunch of communities that are, built around getting a passive income. So I think maybe one of the examples I would use is like, I don't know, like college students that are looking to build up like side income streams that have, probably are technologically savvy. So they have a lot of, they have Netflix and Spotify and all those sorts of things, or something else. So let me just actually take a look. So yeah, just around user acquisition here. That's probably the route that I would go is look for places that have users who are probably interested in getting some sort of side income. They probably already have a lot of those profiles that you're looking to connect to. Where like, I guess in like college students or young professionals are kind of like the main targets that come to mind. Yeah, I mean, there are a few ways of doing this, like partnering with like groups on campus or something else along those lines. So there's a few different growth strategies you can use here. There's paid acquisition, there's content, there's a bunch of different channels. If I were you, what I would do is I just start a bunch of different campaigns. I test out some paid, I test out some SEO, I test out some more hands-on acquisition, like partnering with organizations on campuses, and see which channels end up yielding, the users that you're looking for. It's not just getting them into the top of the funnel, but how many of them actually end up using your company and all that. So yeah, that's my high-level feedback on user acquisition. Specifically, when it comes to this product, I've seen variants of this, monetize your own information in a private way. I think the issue with this is how significant is this income for users, where already they're, they have like a bunch of personal data that is monetizable, but at the end of the day, how much are they actually making from this? From what I've seen, it's actually not that much. So if it's different in this case, then maybe it's a little bit more interesting. Here it says you claim, I understand euros a bit better. Number of successful invites, number of accounts linked or surveys taken. So let's say I don't invite anybody and I link like 8 accounts, I'd make 80.8 euros in this case. So it might be difficult to make it like economically viable. That's been the main issue I've had with this. So, okay. Anything to add, or should we move on to the next one?
Okay.
All right, keep it going. The next one is Google. The website is dap.ng, and I believe. And then the question is how to raise funds. Okay. Okay. So the question really here is around fundraising. Let's take a look at what they're doing. So DAP, delivered as promised, is built to protect you from fraud by giving you control of your money even after you send it. So it sounds like, let's say that today I make a PayPal payment and it turns out to be fraudulent. And I need to initiate like a chargeback, for my credit card or my PayPal. There's some potential difficulties that are involved when I do that. This is saying that it makes it easier. So, okay. Or in this case, yeah, you buying something and then getting scammed. Okay. All right. Okay, got it. So the DAP is basically being the middleman or escrow that's holding the money. It's holding the money in escrow, and upon successful delivery, it releases the funds. Okay, got it. I'm not exactly sure how it's different from a third party holding the money. I'm just reading a bit more here. So the question here is how to approach fundraising, but let me just take a quick look at some of the FAQs to make sure I have a better understanding of what happens here. Okay, got it. So it's basically an intermediary that holds the funds in escrow before releasing them to the seller. Okay, got it. So the question here is how to approach fundraising. Fundraising depends on a bunch of different things. It's kind of hard to give like a blanket answer because there's so many factors involved, like the team, your experience in this market, the progress you've made so far, your traction, all of those things are kind of playing to a role in fundraising. And I'm guessing if you're raising like your first round, there's a bit of a less of an emphasis on maybe traction because maybe you're not as far along, and more of an emphasis on like the team and the market you're going after. At least that's the framework that I use when evaluating a business. So it's kind of hard to just give an answer that applies to everybody here. Oftentimes for early companies, I would ask them, especially for software businesses, how far they can get without raising funds, because as it's become easier to kind of build companies without spending lots of money, you can usually get a little bit further with what you have. So if, for example, you're talking to investors and people are saying that, hey, like this is a concern, if you can kind of get further with what you already have, like, get more users or transact more on the platform, that can help de-risk some of the things that investors are looking for. So this is I think it's a bit of a tricky question, but I think in this category in particular, your best bet, I think, actually is, without knowing anything else about the team or otherwise, is traction probably would help you the most. I'm not exactly sure what the numbers are today, but it might be helpful if you're having conversations with investors and that becomes like a point that they're raising, that getting more traction kind of solves a lot of these problems. But again, yeah, it's kind of hard to give specific advice just from this landing page. All right. guess going on to the next one. How to target a particular customer type for Get Assigned, which is task management for people outside the organization. Okay, I remember giving some feedback for this project. So my understanding of this one is basically Asana or one of these many task management products aren't as useful when you're dealing with people outside an organization, specifically when you're working with like freelancers or contractors or something like that. So you can basically delegate easily to people outside your organization with friendly pricing that's relevant to working a lot with freelancers and such. So the question here is niche down on marketing and focus on specific types of customers, and basically distribution. Should I be focusing on a particular customer type? So in this case, the example given here is content managers and work with freelancers. I think the answer to that is yes. I'm glad I can give like a concrete answer here. When you're building a product in this space where there's a lot of alternatives, there's a lot of competitors, focusing down the target use case becomes even more important. The reason for that is, let's say that I am I'm a person who is looking to manage a team, and I'm looking for something online, right? That a product that helps me accomplish my goals here. Odds are I'm looking at a lot of like the brand name stuff, like an Asana or a Basecamp or something else like that. The more specific you can get in your copy or the targeting of your product, the easier it is for a target customer to come and basically self-identify with the problem you're solving. Because if you just kind of make your copy just like another Asana or just like another Basecamp, it's really hard to win customers from those people, from those big companies, right? Because they're just going to go with the brand name. But if you kind of narrow it down to like someone very specific, like, hey, you are this kind of business owner and you're working with freelancers. When someone visits your site, they're like, oh yeah, that's me, as opposed to going to Asana or something and seeing some more generalized copy. So my advice there is to narrow down the targeting for more than one purpose. The one purpose is to get the users into the door because they can identify with it. But perhaps the even more important reason is it lets you narrow down the scope of your product, and you can do a better job specifically for that target customer. Because otherwise, if you're trying to build something for anyone who's using like a task management software, it's going to be hard to compete with the established companies out there. So narrowing it down in scope is beneficial both for user acquisition and also for fine-tuning the product into what matters for this specific kind of user. So yeah, I hope that answers your question. But I think that because you asked it, you're kind of on the right track there of narrowing down the scope of this of your product here. Okay, moving on to the next one, which is study boards. And we're going to switch over to Daniel here. And the question they have is landing page feedback.
Yeah. So Daniel, the question here for study boards is so study boards is a marketplace. They want some landing page feedback, and they kind of have an interesting, not uncommon marketplace question, which is how do you build a landing page that conveys value to both sides of the marketplace? So in this case, they have both schools and students.
Well, good afternoon, everyone. Here we have study boards. For context, I guess this is it's like an EdTech. I guess it's an EdTech platform. And yeah, your question was a landing page. So what happens if you have two types of users? Okay, you have two types of users, riders and drivers, you want a landing page that appeals to both. Actually, I think this is a kind of coded scroll around, move around, just so people get a sense of what it is. I think the actual kind of question here is who's more important, your supply side or your demand side? I guess demand would be students here. You'd kind of, at the end of the day, it's going to be 51-49, and it's worth thinking about kind of which side of the marketplace you want to optimize for. Who do you want to make this more interesting to? In your situation, I imagine it's the teachers because that's where the money is. Bit hard to know without speaking to you guys. Maybe you could click on payments. Yeah, about or payments. Let's click around. A word from the founder. That's good. Hi, Mike. Let's click on payments. Yeah, so I assume these are teachers that are going to charge, it's not like this is a pay through Discord or whatever, and 16-year-olds are going to pay. So you might want to optimize your landing page for teachers, I think, since those are the people that are going to be paying anyway. So that would be my bias. That you could see how I'm thinking about it here. I'm really not answering your question. I'm substituting it for a different one, which is to the extent you had to optimize who you should optimize for. So that's my 2 cents feedback to you there. Looks really interesting. Ed tech, there's that theory that at least here in the United States, three large centers of cost disease are education, healthcare, and housing. And there's $1 trillion companies in any one of those that people are ignoring. So if you can take part, I guess, in making education better, it seems like there's a large market there. Obvious complexities around buyers and whatnot, but yeah, it seems like this is a kind of fill in the blanks type of thing. Cool. Looks
with
cool.
acres of peppers, pimentos, and peas.
Oh, that's a great voice. All right. So hopefully that gives you a sense. I think this is really neat.
Next up, we have.
Good to, as you pull it up, really good to think about just buyer psychology when no one's broken through in ed tech and who buys what, schools, whatnot. Anyway, you've thought about that already. All right. Who do we have next up?
Next up is Compass Maps. Put yourself in their shoes. What would you do to grow this?
Okay, so first let's figure out what this is. Obviously, we're in Hawaii, I think. Could be Hawaii. Anyway, so this is a some type of route planner that focuses on scenery, I guess, versus fastest, which is cool. That's neat. So, and kind of the broad question is how you grow something like this. There's a little bit of a pun here on the page. You can see AI driven. Obviously, it's human driven, but you get the idea. Maybe that was a pun I made for myself. Anyway, so the question is how you'd grow this. The landing page is nice. Some small nits and details, around the app design. No one really cares about that. And it's the type of thing that could stick. What I find interesting, just in abstract, is people have with mapping in general, people have kind of religious beliefs about like what mapping is superior. Oh, you got to use Waze, you got to use Google. It's very much a religious doctrine. So you can kind of imagine people just, this meme catching on of like, oh, we should use, what is it called? Compass to drive there. And you got some ratings. That's great. How would you grow it? That's your practical question. Okay, off the top of my head, how would I grow something like this? And Rishi, Andrew, feel free to chime in. I guess, so a couple of things. One is car rental agencies. That could be interesting. These are the tourists that are coming in to drive somewhere. So you could just put up flyers there or stickers and whatnot. And you might say, well, that's really annoying. I have to put my pants on and go outside and go into a enterprise rent-a-car, but that might be worth doing. You could also advertise if you didn't want to put your pants on and just do it through CPC ads for car rental. The other option is, of course, on routes itself. And, to the extent that there's maybe a billboard, it could be a fun billboard.
Have we found a practical use for billboards?
Yeah.
Just get off QR code.
Get off the highway, get onto the one, something like that for here in California. So that could be fun. You might say, well, billboard, I don't have any money. Those are expensive. Okay, you could try and find those travel bloggers. Those people are super popular on Instagram and YouTube. I think people love watching that. The couples that go in the mobile home around the US. I'm sure, you could do some type of rev share thingy with them. Maybe you don't even any money to get started. So those are some just 3 very random ideas. Travel industry is, go ahead, Andrew.
I was gonna say, just riffing off the influencer idea there, I've seen a lot of TikToks and Instagram videos of these travel influencers that showcase these beautiful scenic routes all around wherever the destination is they're traveling. It kind of writes itself, the kinds of partnership opportunities you can do with that of hey, you want to do this trip? This is the trip I planned with Compass Maps or something like that, where Daniel said, either the rev share model or something otherwise, where you just basically pay for it. It sounds like that's kind of the people that would like this kind of thing are the ones that are following these travel influencers who are already kind of doing this manually, right? So.
Oh, yeah, that's totally true. Anyway, so those are, I think, some decent ideas. While we pull up the next one, there's the whole geocaching scene, which could also be related / interesting to this. The people that have pins. I never really understood that. But anyway, I highly recommend checking out that subreddit if you haven't already. All right, what's up next?
Next up, we have Atelier. They are building they're building a platform where their users are Shopify stores, and they're wondering what scale of customer to target. Should they be focusing on 250 a month customers who are doing less revenue versus going straight to the massive Shopify stores where they would charge, we would have much larger, they'd have much more revenue per customer. What's the right way to start?
First of all, would like to compliment the Atelier people on an excellent homepage, but of a confusing domain, but an excellent homepage. I think, so there's a lot of people doing these things, I guess, including Shopify itself. I'd want to think a little bit about how this is different from Shopify, but that wasn't the question. The question was what type of customers to go after. And it's one of those where the answer is, it's kind of like you've arrived at the Bacchanal Buffet in Las Vegas. I don't know if you guys have ever been there. Theoretically, I mean, I don't know that I've been there either, but theoretically, if you go there, they have all the food in the world. And so imagine you've arrived, you're famished, you're really asking what should you eat? And the answer is you should kind of just try everything and see what happens. So large customers, small customers, we live in an interesting world where it's free to send email. So I'd recommend sending a lot of it. And seeing where things stick. That's my super specific, helpful advice. I don't know if you guys have any more detailed things to suggest, but this looks good. I mean, I will say one final thought, just to encourage the Atelier folks. I mean, it does seem to me that these Vercel and whatnot, these companies are basically becoming e-commerce hosting platforms. And so there's like a whole form of kind of everyone thought those guys would suffer the path of Heroku, where you're serious developers, obviously as they get grow up and become interesting, they run away from your platform. But everyone forgot, I guess, that there's like a whole new internet being created of online e-commerce stores with a degree of difficulty lower than what, was possible 5-10 years ago. So obviously this is a booming market, and I'm sure they can capture either segment. So they should kind of just, I think, try both.
Yeah, but I'll chime in here and say I agree with you should definitely try both and see what resonates better with either of those target customers. There might be one small benefit of doing the smaller stores, at least initially, which is time to learning, where in some cases making a sale for one of the big Shopify stores, it might take a lot of time. And if you're still kind of in the product development phase, iterating more quickly with, a smaller store that can kind of get back to you quicker in terms of the back and forth might be helpful there. But if you're kind of already at the stage where you've kind of had those learnings, you refine the product, then there really is no way to go wrong in terms of which kind of persona that you're going after. But if you're still kind of really early in exploring which features to build, that might be something you might want to consider. All right, moving on. Next one, we got BIMZooCash. All right, Rashid, hit us with what's up with this one.
Yes, this one's straightforward. What KPIs would you track if you're BIMZooCash?
What KPIs would I track? This looks like loan repayment options, loan disbursement. Okay, okay, this is pretty clear. BIMZooCash gives you low interest quick loans. Download the mobile app to get started. Okay, so which KPIs make sense here? Well, the first thing that comes to mind is like the number of people who are requesting loans. So the number of loans the kind of inbound that you're getting, and how many loans that you're issuing out. Obviously, the main KPI for any business in this category is like repayment rate. Obviously, you don't want a large percentage of people defaulting because that means something's going on with your underwriting model. So I would say it's a combination of those things. Like one, the number of people that are coming in requesting loans, because that's probably going to be the top of funnel, right? It gives you the population of people to choose from. Two would be the number, like in terms of dollar amounts, I suppose, and also the number of loans that you're issuing out. And the third major one would be, repayment rate. You want to make sure that, you have some sort of, I'm assuming that when you've designed this business, you have some sort of Excel spreadsheet somewhere, which works out the unit economics of the business, where you have all these different variables you're tweaking. And I'm guessing the one at the end of the funnel, which is repayment rate, is the one that affects your bottom line the most, where let's say that your business is successful if fewer than 2% of people are don't pay you back. but if that ends up being like a higher number, your business is not successful. And that's the kind of KPI that I would focus on at the end of the day, which is your ability to basically have a good underwriting model, which is the main challenge for any sort of loan business. Yeah. Think this one is relatively straightforward. Oh, and I guess in this model, it's not quite a KPI, but something that you might want to tweak as well is the interest rate, where I'm assuming in this model, you also have a specific kind of interest rate that if you tweak that, the number of people who can repay you kind of goes up or down, like I guess inversely to the repayment rate. So I would say that's something you might want to tweak as well. Not quite a KPI, but something you want to keep a close eye on because it also affects the success of your business. All right.
Next up is CanTicket, sort of a competitor to Asana and Monday. They're asking about growth channel. I'll add a little variant to the question is how do you think about growth strategy generally for them, but also in particular when you're in a space that is very crowded?
Great question. I think it might relate, funnily enough, to the company that we saw just a little earlier, which was Get Assigned, where when you're going after this crowded space of like Asanas and Mondays and all that sort of stuff, and you're looking to grow, it's hard to get like, a pre-existing customer that's already on Asana or something like that to switch off. There's like switching costs and there's inertia and all that sort of stuff. So when you're looking to grow, I really do think the best way of doing it is to kind of figure out what these folks don't do so well. And usually it's like a bunch of things when you're at that scale, because you're trying to service a bunch of different customers and you're going to fall short and not be able to move as fast in a bunch of different directions, right? So I think narrowing the scope of the target customer is the kind of the go-to answer here, where in the previous case for Get Assigned, it was specifically for managing people that are outside your organization, which is somewhat of a non-standard use case. I know Asana and other companies have like guest pricing and all that sort of stuff, but I wouldn't say it's like purposefully built for that use case. Similarly, in this case, if you're looking to grow, finding those kinds of users, if it's not, people outside your organization, it's something completely different. If I can just take a look at this. It looks like your differentiation here is reporting, time tracking, and all that sort of stuff. Simplicity. Yeah, who's the kind of target user that is a better fit for your product versus a Trello or a Monday? I think asking yourself that question is important here because you don't want to just be going and it'll be hard to kind of match the feature set of like an existing company that does a bunch of things. But what you can do as a startup is solve one particular problem especially well. So if it's time tracking, for example, which I'm seeing in a few places, or it's reporting, find the people where that matters. Time tracking, probably freelancers or contractors. If it's reporting, it might be salespeople or something like that, or people that really care about their the metrics associated with the tasks that they're doing. So I would say there's a few different ways of looking at it, but strategically, I would just narrow down the thing that you think you do much better than those other people, and then ask yourself the question, who really cares about this more than, say, the general customer who's looking for a task management solution? So here it says agencies. Maybe agencies are the right people to target, right? So hope that gives you a bit more color on this. All right.
Next up is Daniel, maybe on your own computer, I'll send you a link. You may want to open up the application for this project as well. It's quite technical. This one's Mazer Dynamics, and they want landing page feedback.
Okay, we can
which
do that
again,
first.
you may want to supplement it with the application, but yeah, take a look when you're ready.
Powering lunar mission for a better tomorrow. Powering a lunar mission. Producing lunar engines. Vacuum operating internal combustion engine, voice. I would say, by the way, obviously not what we're here to do, but the spacing between the letters here does make it difficult for me to read. Okay, so kind of get the broad idea. Wonder what we're doing here. Let's see. We have our website is meant to convey our goal. Da, da, da. Okay, so their question seems to be basically, does the website convey what they're doing in a fair way? And I would like to congratulate the Mazer people on having a conscientious question. And so, okay, so their question is, we're doing something pretty complicated. In this case, is a vacuum operated internal combustion engine, which I guess is a better way to build an engine that moves on the moon, roughly. Are we, they want to communicate it properly. They also don't want to like totally give away the renders and all that cool stuff. So I'd say, first of all, you're building something amazing. As a human being, I appreciate having you as part of our species. Second thing is, I don't think, to be totally candid with you guys, this homepage does a great job at communicating what you do. I appreciate your conscientious question of like, look, we don't want to overpromise, we don't want to appear too lofty, but we also want to communicate what we do, and we don't want to give away our secret sauce. I don't think you have to give away your secret sauce. No one's asking to see renders of your secret engine, whatnot. Your website is, to be totally candid, I think kind of caught in between wanting to appear kind of futuristic and highbrowed and inspiring and kind of Apollo 11 movie style website, and on the other extreme, being a really detailed Substack article on like what you're doing. My sense is, from your question to us, that your soul is in that highly technical, latter part. I think you can have a website that has much less stuff, meaning I think you're working a bit too hard. I think, is it Andrew that's driving? Yeah, anyway, we're scrolling around here. We're really going for a walk. There's a lot. So what I think the nice thing, you can do is you can actually have a pretty dense technical website. Like, I don't think you need to try to, my 2 cents is, and I say this as someone who's not a good designer, don't try and do fancy design unless you're a very good designer. If you're not a good designer, just make like the simplest thing possible. The nice thing is, the highly, very high IQ nerdy audience that you're ultimately trying to probably hire, I imagine, or raise money from, will appreciate that. So if I were you, I would redo this website. I'd probably have like one page that has like a cool photo of something. And then I'd have like another page. There's just like links to a very, like literally as dense as possible in ASCII monospace font. Here's our like
the white paper strategy.
White paper. Yeah. It doesn't even have to be a PDF, could be a PDF. Here's our Talmud. Feel free to click around and you could pour your soul out there. And I think you'll find that you'll get kind of free filtering, meaning only the Gwern's of the world, so to speak, will be able to push through the membrane that you'll be creating. Whereas now you're actually trying to appeal to an audience, I think, that you almost don't want to sell to. So hopefully that makes sense as an answer. All right. Next up, we have Jasmine HQ.
Jasmine HQ, they would like thoughts on user acquisition and in particular, a sort of subset of that, community building. How would you think about community building for their audience?
Well, first, let's see what this is, other than that nice little MSN Messenger ding. This is kind of NFT marketplace for Africa, which is cool. Okay, so the question is, how do you build early community here? Look, and so maybe there's a broad version of this question, which is how to build community in general, and then there's a specific one to NFTs and all the goodness that comes with NFTs. Maybe the answer to the broad question is, I think the way you build a good community, I am 1% qualified to answer this question, but not 0, which is good. is ultimately the way you build like a really nice restaurant, really nice club, really nice Discord server is, you have to start with a small quorum of good people and try to make it, I think in your case, yeah, having it be kind of invite only and having a wait list and people inviting other people, that type of dynamic worked pretty well for a lot of different services. And it's actually, I wouldn't overcomplicate it. If you have the right core group, everything cascades from there. With NFTs, I think there's like this added dynamic of market manipulation that I think a lot of early OpenSea, supposedly, I don't know anything from the inside, but a lot of, early OpenSea stuff happened where I don't think people understand. Obviously an NFT sells for like 10 million of appreciated ETH. Like there's a whole Sybil attack going on there where, it could just be the same person, a different person changing money. I mean, that creates news, which then creates traffic. So I think that trick is probably not fully priced in. And I think you can continue to do it and just have NFTs get sold for a lot of money to the same people over and over again. Again, I don't know as a fact that anyone did this on OpenSea, but I've heard stories and I think it's, it makes it sense to do this, even if you're not OpenSea and you're just someone on their platform. So you might want to be able to do that. But anyway, I think the story of building communities is actually pretty straightforward, even without any fancy NFT hacks. It's just kind of, finding a good group of people and going at it day after day after day. And, I'll tell you guys the same stories you've probably heard all over, which is if you look at all the early kind of news communities or kind of the established online kind of cities, your Reddit, Hacker News, whatnot. All those early stories are just people like, a group of 5 people just posting articles to each other all day. So I think it's kind of that, and you just have to do that for a while. So not a very exciting answer. I think this could work very well. I mean, there's a whole subs in the physical art world, which I know nothing about, maybe 0.01% qualified to talk about. There is a whole subgenre of African art, which has its own marketplaces and and it's very different from, your Monet or Da Vinci art pieces. So, definitely makes sense that maybe there should be a related one for crypto as well. By the way, if you guys, just a small little thing, you don't have to capitalize every single word in your subtitle. It kind of reads like, I don't know, like a subtitle of a movie script or something. So looks cool. Yeah, you see some other stuff. You've been playing it safe. You write here in your comments to us on targeting accelerators. There's one thing I can tell you is playing it safe in your type of industry doesn't seem to work. So I would play it adventurous. All right. Next one is nomadic food pods.
All right.
Andrew.
That's me. Nomadic
Yes.
food pods. That's a great name, by the way.
Oh.
There's something that comes to mind when I think of nomadic food pod. Let's see if it's the same here.
It's a very, very specific. Yeah, if the name is accurate, that's a great name. They're wondering if you're nomadic food pods, or if you're the people making them at least, what KPIs would you set?
All right, KPIs for nomadic food pods. Let's take a look at what nomadic food pods is. So modern day picnicking, environmentally friendly DIY gathering kits. Okay, so it looks like everything that you hold the food with and eat with is recyclable or biodegradable, and you sell these like picnic kits. So let's take a look at those kits real quick. Charcuterie kit, bulk 3 kit. Okay, cool. So if my friend and I want to go get do a picnic in Golden Gate Park, instead of buying a bunch of these, going to Costco and getting those big plastic collections of plastic plates and plastic utensils. We can be more environmentally conscious and use something like nomadic food pods. All right, so the KPIs I would set, I feel like are relatively straightforward. Given that you're selling a product for consumers, the typical KPI we go with there is the amount of money you're making with your sales. So I would say something along the lines of like monthly revenue. This is not like a recurring purchase product, but if I were to judge based on a monthly basis how much money you make, that's probably a good proxy for the health of your business, whether or not you're able to kind of acquire users, sell them, bring them through the funnel, and have them come back and repeat and buy again. So I'd say those are the 2 ones. The first one is just revenue, and the second is probably repeat buyers, because I would guess that the people that are interested in this kind of thing want to continue being environmentally conscious, which is a good feature of being in this industry. And ideally, they come back and buy again after they've used it once. So I can actually see this being a subscription thing too, given the kind of target user you're going after. But yeah, I think it's pretty straightforward. Just revenue and repeat buyers is kind of the two things here. I guess if you wanted to add a third one, like the number of customers, is probably a good one too. It's going to be very closely correlated with revenue, but it's a good one to keep an eye on, the number of actual sales you're making to customers on a monthly basis. Yeah. So at the end of the day, like for this kind of business, you're going to be looking at this revenue number and figuring out how to get it up month over month through these different acquisition channels. And the thing that I would suggest for that's kind of the unanswered question here, which is how can I make those KPIs go up, is think about the different channels that you can find potential customers through. Like Daniel said earlier, you want to try a bunch of different things, all these different channels around paid acquisition, around social, around content, around in-person. There's a bunch of different things that you can try where you want to evaluate kind of the ROI on each of those channels, if the money that you're putting into it is yielding the revenue that you're looking for. So yeah, I hope that answers your questions here. Awesome product, by the way. I could totally see myself using this, going to like put the park in the city here and using one of these. All right, moving on to the next one, which is
next up is I Beat Play Music, and they're wondering. So the question is, how do I stand out from streaming competition? I think there's a variant of the question, which is like, what would you do if you're them to differentiate from other streaming platforms? Like, why are they fundamentally different? So I don't have an answer from them on that one. So yeah, question for you then is just, how would you differentiate if you're them from other streaming platforms?
Okay, so to answer this question, I needed to take a little bit of a closer look at the products to see what makes you different from, say, a Spotify or an Apple Music or one of these other ones. Okay, so Africa is the first point of narrowing it down a little bit here. Independent artist is the second one. So my understanding of this is that it's not for like the mainstream artists that are going after, that are like, people are playing hundreds of thousands of plays on Spotify or anything like that. You're going after independent African artists and helping them earn royalties. Kind of like what, SoundCloud was trying to do in the early days. And I'm sure there's been plenty of other attempts at something like this. This one seems to be a little bit more specialized in African independent artists. I mean, I feel like that's your answer right there. Is kind of on terms of differentiation. It's hard to just build a competing streaming platform that's just Spotify V2, right? Because just in terms of scale, brand name recognition, all that sort of stuff, it's not easy target to go after. But ask yourself the question of and the answer to this much better than I, but let's say you take your average independent indie African artist who's making some music and trying to find a way to earn royalties, and they're not getting enough either discovery or plays or whatever through Spotify, right? What these people are looking for at the end of the day is more exposure. So people listen to the music, they can get paid and all that. So why can you do that better for them than Spotify or SoundCloud does for them today? If you're able to give them a good answer to that question, I think that's your answer around differentiation. Like, you can tell this person, hey, you'll make more money if you're with us. And if that's true, they'll come use you. Right. So I think that's probably the right way of going about it here, is when you're thinking about growth or differentiation, ask yourself what your identity is. And oftentimes that's the reason why you started the business, is to enable something a little bit more specific or targeted than what's out there in the world today. So yeah, hopefully that answers your question. Moving on.
There's a related question here from this next one is a related question from it redirects. Is that right? Hold on a second.
This one?
Oh no, it is right. Oh, I see the link was wrong on this side. Yeah, so the question this is for Daniel. The question from these guys is on defensibility. They've said they've gotten feedback from investors that it doesn't seem like what they're building is kind of defendable. So how would you respond to that? And maybe what would you change about the landing page to make that clearer?
Okay, so this is some type of IoT purchasing platform. So you could buy your IoT things here. And I guess it's for like serious people submitting RFPs and whatnot. There's an IoT advisor. I don't know what that means. Cool. There's a circle with rotating words. And the question is how defensible this is. So look, I think that feedback is actually a different form of feedback. I think it was just investment, not exciting enough for me type of feedback. I mean, I could imagine there's a kind of a broad question of how many specialized marketplaces should there be in the world. And so, I guess you have, as I guess as a secondhand marketplace, eBay has everything. But you also have more specific ones for furniture. You probably have even more specific ones for sofas. And so like, where does it end? And I think the answer is, obviously there is some abstraction point, which is a bit too specific. And there's some type of math there about, ACV of the platform. Like, I think in like private aviation, you can get really, really, really specific just because every plane is so expensive times number of people, which kind of gives you a sense of size, just how much money is moving around. And I think IoT is large enough that it could have its own, and there probably are. I mean, I don't know, a bunch of simple Googling will take you there to just, I guess, different IoT marketplaces. If this is what I think it is, which is it's a two-sided market, there should be plenty of defensibility like all two-sided marketplaces have, where if you're just creating liquidity, you usually have defensibility in just the scale. There's buyers and sellers, and it's the same town square market, the souk of the Middle East is defensible for the same exact reason too. So I suspect the feedback is actually a different form of feedback. I think people might just be being polite and might be saying, I just don't have enough traction. I don't really see what's going on here. The pitch might be a bit could be a bit more specific. So I think about refining that a little bit. I don't think the actual issue of defensibility is one for a product like this. I mean, it's far more defensible than many of the other things we see. So I think, by the way, one final thing I would add to this just homepage is there might be reasons you're not doing this. But the website seems to be very high level and cursory. It looks a bit like we're trying to get you on the phone lead gen type of thing. If you guys have some type of marketplace for IoT devices, you should just have that be the landing page. And I think that'd be much more exciting and enticing to people. There might be, I imagine if you were here, you'd be saying also, well, it doesn't work. We don't want to, I would just do it. So, and the value I can bring to this conversation is I'm not in your market. So I do have the dumb view that most customers will have. But anyway, that's my quick feedback there.
Last question is from Faraha. How do you fundraise when you don't actually know any investors?
Well, thank you for that straightforward question. While your website loads, okay, discover beauty experiences on Faraha. So I guess this is a market where you can buy kind of lotions and potions for your skincare routine, which is cool. That's obviously a gigantic market.
I think this is actually booking a service.
Thank you, Andrew. This is
like a nail salon.
Yes. Okay, great. So this is kind of mind body. It's a mind body thing, but there's also virtual services. Okay, and so the question really isn't about the makeup routine or the person to go to for your haircut. It's about how to raise money when you don't know folks well. So obviously, I'm here to talk my own book, and I do think like this is the main service. Programs like Pioneer, not just Pioneer, of course. Everything from Y Combinator to Techstars to all of these different forms of foundational investment programs. I think one of the key things they provide is accreditation, which then helps you raise from investors. And I think that is hopefully something we, as a service, we've managed to deliver to a lot of our founders. And so, but suppose you didn't want to go through us, or suppose you didn't want to go through YC or any one of these other programs. The truth is, it's hard to get a cold email to just go through to the big firms because they generally do believe in the power of the referral network. And so just by, most of the emails, the cold emails that they get are obviously bad. For AHA is probably excellent, but like by volume, like most things are bad. Most comments on Twitter are bad, and so they let the network filter for them. So they definitely do look for referrals. And if you didn't want to go through a program like Pioneer, which obviously I would recommend, but if you didn't want to, I would just try and find, more early stage people that probably have less deal flow, but their accreditation would then subsequently help you. And those people you could potentially cold email. You might say, well, how do I find those people? And I'd say, well, like Google's free. So it's not that hard, I think. You might want to email folks and just try and get some feedback, maybe even over email instead of just pushing constantly to meet, the famous old adage to ask for money, to get money, ask for advice, and to get advice, ask for money. So I think that kind of applies here. It'd be kind of handy if the iPhone on the landing page did not include the header. But that was unrelated to fundraising.
Great.
All right. Thank you for that, Daniel. That was great.
Thank you, Andrew. Thank you, Rishi.
Thank you, guys. That's kind of a nice one to end on.
That's right.
All right. See you guys later.